Ahoy all! So today we're going to go over the knightly vows of Bretonnia. From the Knights Errant up to the Dukes of Bretonnia, we'll cover the vows that are in the game and the lore behind them, as well as some of the other ones that are only in the tabletop. They didn't really leave a lot out, so that's pretty great for all of us fluff nerds that grew up with this stuff. You've probably seen from the new DLC that came out just last week that there are many different types of knights in Bretonnia. Bretonnia is an army that's pretty near and dear to my heart personally. I mean, it was the first army I ever collected when I got into Warhammer some like 15 years ago. Knights, shining armor, giant lances shaped like penises, what's not to like? And the weird kind of French stuff, which is actually a repeating like motif in a lot of Warhammer, overlapping cultural references. So you've got Kislev being kind of Russo-Lithuanian, and you've got Bretonnia, and Bretonnia is based off of French feudal system, hence the Gilles les Bretons, or whatever kind of weird escargot name he's got. But also there's like a spattering of Arthurian legend and Albion references. And part of that feudal system are knights. We all know knights to be the armor-toting badasses that say knave and milady and hark-a-lack-a-lay, and all the kind of things that most people with fedoras wear when you go to Starbucks. But in Warhammer, they're really not that much different. They all worship the Lady of the Lake, who is actually a wood elf goddess. And depending on which level of knight you are, you swear a particular vow, which actually entails you to particular responsibilities. Let's just jump right in with the Knights Errant. And the Knights Errant, like the Knights of the Realm, share the Knight's Vow. And all the vows have like really like haughty, poetic wording behind all of them. When the clarion call is sounded, I will ride out and fight in the name of liege and lady. Whilst I draw breath, the lands bequeathed upon me will remain untainted by evil. Honor is all, chivalry is all. And that's kind of where you get that, weird French pompiness that is actually pretty inherent in the Knights Errant. So the Knights Errant being the nobles' sons, so all the Knights of the Realm, it's their sons. And from their birth, they're pretty much told, hey, you are a knight, now go prove it. And that's kind of like the crux of being a Knights Errant. You're always charging headlong into battle, you're always trying to prove yourself. Oh, that's a troll? Great, I'm going to stick my lance up its ass. That's kind of the whole role of the Knights Errant, is to be that initial shockwave. They're not as skilled fighters as the Knights of the Realm, obviously, because they're younger, but what they kind of lack in skill, they make up for in just being pure impetuous badasses, or at least like those quarterback-like people that are like, oh, I'm starting first-string quarterback, I drive a Mustang, I'll hit on a college girl that's completely out of my league. That's kind of the Knights Errant. But moving on from them, you've got the Knights of the Realm, who are, think of it as the typical feudal system, wherein the Knights of the Realm are in charge of a castle and then are in charge of land, and under that land they have peasants and men-at-arms. And for the most part, the Knight of the Realm is responsible for watching his kingdom, and minor threats they are supposed to deal with on their own, short of actually like conscripting their own peasants and their own men-at-arms to fight that minor threat. And the only time they're really allowed to call for aid is when it kind of escalates past that point. And unless they are called by the kingdom to ride to war, they, for the most part, just watch their land. And it's actually kind of cool because their castles are visible to the next knight's castle to summon aid. So kind of like a Horn of Gondor calls for aid, or something along those lines. I don't know. I'm not Bretonnian. Eventually, though, a Knight of the Realm gets to a point where they take up the questing vow. And this means that they've got some kids and can hand off the kingdom to their oldest son to pursue the Holy Grail. And again, like this is where the Knights Errant come in. Those are the oldest sons. Those are the ones that escalate to the Knight of the Realm once the dad decides to take the questing vow. So the questing knights, as I mentioned, the Bretonnians follow some basic Arthurian mythology. And from that, they get their obsession with the Holy Grail. They choose wisely as the Grail turns them into monsters, but we'll get into that. In the lore, Gilles le Breton drinks from the Grail with his two generals right before squaring off with just this gnarly horde of orcs, as that was the prime enemy of men back then. I mean, Sigmar and the Empire all talk about fighting off orcs. All of the Bretonnia, or the precursor to the Bretonnians, all talk about fighting off orcs, 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 orcs. But since then, the Knights of the Realm aspire to reach that same level of perfection. Every knight kind of aspires to be that shining example of Gilles le Breton. But questing knights then take to the road and begin any number of particular dangerous and suicidal kind of quests to earn that perfection. And they are forbidden to use their lances, hence why they pick up giant two-handed swords to go spelunking around the land, lobbing heads off and swiping right on damsels in distress, and putting it in from anything to dragons to orcs and skaven. Whatever is calls to them, they go and help out. If it's this damsel's in distress, or this holy place needs liberating from these chaos-ridden or undead-ridden things, it goes and does it. And the game doesn't really kind of go into that, because the game covers each vow as just simply an upkeep bonus for the Lord. Kind of like that in the tabletop. When your Lord chooses that specific vow, it makes it easier to field more of the specific knight that vow falls under. And even the questing knight's flowery wording behind his vow to, I set down my lance, symbol of duty, I spurn those whom I love, I relinquish all, and take up the tools of my quest. No obstacle will stand before me, no plea for help shall find me waning, no moon will look upon me twice, lest I be judged idle. I give my body, heart, and soul to the lady whom I seek. And again, that's that whole obsession with the Lady of the Lake. And most knights actually never make it past this point. They spend their lives questing until they are killed or die from any number of 10 million things in the Warhammer world that are trying to kill you or take over your soul. Whichever one. And the usual for medieval stories as it is. But for the few knights that do, the Lady of the Lake approaches them and bids they sup, as the book puts it, from the Holy Grail. So here's the real shot in the nuts. You might not live. Let's say you were just an all-around asshole while you were a questing knight, riding your Ponzi horse, kicking peasants, and bribing hookers. All said, doesn't really sound that bad. But then you would be tainted, quote-unquote, and drinking from the Grail would actually kill you, aging you rapidly as you vanish to dust, just like in Indiana Jones. So, if you choose wisely, you'd become, you guessed it, a Grail Knight. Now, so I told you that Gilles le Breton and his two generals, it was like the Duke of Mousillon and Lyonesse, drank from the chalice and became Grail Knights, right? Well, they don't just perk up like three bros about to annihilate some gnarly seps in the gym, high on pre-workout, brother. They become living embodiments of their lady and goddess. Their skin revitalizes, age falls from their bones, and they become inhumanly strong and fast. One Grail Knight is a match for the strongest Blood Knight and some Chaos Champions. I'll go into Blood Knights more in another video because I want to get into the vampire counts and their bloodlines and everything. But even from the stats in the tabletop, you can see that that's true. They match up or surpass them pretty spot on. As the actual units in the game, they're terrifying. Look at those giant glowing lances. Holy fucking shit. Their weapons glow with the light and fire of the Lady of the Lake, and that's kind of a big flowery thing again from the book. If you're looking at the actual vow for the Grails itself, that which is sacrosanct I shall preserve, that which is sublime I will protect, that which threatens I will destroy, for my holy wrath will know no bounds. Again, same kind of like flowery, really like over the top, like I have made a promise to you, my lady, and thrice upon the morrow I shall defend thine honor. And essentially, they, like I said, they become wrecking balls, charging through infantry, inspiring their allies, instilling fear in their foes. And you can think like two towers, right? When the riders of Rohan charged down that like 15-degree fucking slope, orcs blinded everywhere. And outside of war, though, Grail Knights are relegated to protecting sacred and holy places of the Lady and the Grail. And for the most part, they like Grail chapels, holy sites, any kind of important theological location across Bretonnia, they go, they guard, and they kind of keep secure. Some Grail Knights assume resume their titles as dukes, archdukes, and paladins, as they say, okay, hey, that's my best way to protect those holy sites, is to protect the land as a whole. And some of these solo knights become known as hermit knights, and they can actually attract a small gathering of peasants, other questing knights looking for their blessing, fallen lords, stuff like that. And from there, they can actually form a brotherhood and create a cathedral to create these tithes for the realm. So you've got all of these knightly vows, and the only other one that's really left out is the peasant's duty. And the peasant's duty really only pertains to the men-at-arms and the peasants, like the yeomen and the I think it's the on-foot squires, which are actually not in the tabletop, but it's kind of cool that they added that, because there was never really like a, hey, here's our elite foot infantry unit in the tabletop. They just kind of used the cavalry to smash everything to bits. But if you're looking at the Pegasuses, the Pegasus, they all assume to be elite knights of the realm. So there's nothing really special about them as far as their vows go. They still adhere to that same knightly Knight of the Realm vow. But that's really it for the knightly vows. In the next video, I'm going to be covering the Vampire Count's bloodlines, like I was saying, starting with the Blood Dragons and their connection to Mousillon, which is kind of how this is going to segue away. But go ahead and subscribe if you're looking for more Lorehammer, as it's called, and I'll be covering plenty in the coming videos. Also, if you're looking for help with some of the competitive side of Total War Warhammer, head on over to my buddy Turin's stream. He covers strats and unit breakdowns pretty damn well. But if you have any questions on Knights, Bretonnia, anything like that, go ahead and comment below, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.